Seems to me that the best possible outcome for both progressives and Democrats would be for the court to say that insurers must provide all the extended coverage, but that individuals may wait until they have a pre-existing condition to pay for that coverage. At that point, every American should understand the cost of for-profit health care. I say that because everyone already in the system would see their premiums quadruple overnight. Well, there you go. Well, the government doesn't necessarily want that. And it would be hard for them to make their argument of it being a necessary and proper extension of their regulatory power without the mandate. But yes, I agree with you. It will show the failure of the insurance market. I have said before that private insurance is a failed product. It is a failed product, and maybe more accurately to say, it is a failed business model. And during the break, I'll play an interview with Wendell Potter, which will both infuriate you and maybe agitate you, wherein he says that the insurance companies desperately needed this individual mandate to maintain because they have a failed business model. And it is a failed business model from the perspective of the insurance companies because they could see actuarially that the population is aging and that younger people were getting priced out of their product. And as the population ages, people don't have Medicare until 65, they would end up having to pay more and more claims relative to the amount of premiums that they were taking in. So they needed this individual mandate to maintain themselves. It is a failed business model from the perspective of the insurance companies. It is also a failed product insofar as, or a failed market insofar as we know that the government has to step in and say, you have to treat people in emergency rooms if you receive any federal assistance. So we can see that health insurance is not providing health care or health care access for 45 million people in this country. We know that health insurance does not provide health care access to anybody who has a pre-existing condition and has lost their insurance and is trying to buy new insurance. It is not doing the job it's supposed to be doing for society. It is a failed product. It is a failed market. And there are two ways to remedy this. One is the Affordable Care Act. I don't particularly like that remedy because it props up as another bailout for another industry, an industry that is providing, at the very least, limited social utility. And it's simply maintaining their ability to affect the way our government responds to problems. And then, of course, the other way to respond to this thing would be to simply have Medicare for all. Even a Medicare buy-in at age 55 would have gone a long way to solving these problems. Because if you take those 55 to 65-year-olds out of the risk pool for private insurance, you then have a healthier group of people in insurance. It will lower the cost of premiums because the risk is not as much for health insurance, thereby bringing more people into the insurance market. Obviously not those who probably are in poverty or even 133% poverty, maybe even 150% or 175% poverty, but somewhere in between there, you would bring a lot of those people into the insurance because insurance would be much cheaper, because the risk pool would be diminished. I mean, imagine for a moment if we had no Medicare. Imagine for the implications if we have Medicare, the eligibility raised to 67. a cohort of people between the ages of 65 and 67 far more likely to be ill than someone who is 25 to 27. Far more likely to be ill than someone 35 to 37, even 45 to 47, who will then be trying to buy insurance on the private insurance market, increasing the risk involved in that risk pool, raising the price of insurance for everybody, then making it more out of reach for those people who are younger, not as wealthy, not as inclined to buy health insurance because they're not suffering or they don't anticipate suffering health issues until later, thereby again raising the cost of health insurance. This is what is known as the death spiral. You hear policy wonks talk about. It's the death spiral of the insurance market. So one way or another, particularly if this mandate is struck down, but I'm convinced fairly, even if we maintain it, this market is going to collapse unless we continue to subsidize it with taxpayer dollars. So really, if conservatives want to be, and libertarians want to have any type of intellectual integrity, they should also call for no government mandate. And I guess that's part of what they're arguing in the Medicare thing in some respects. No government mandate that people have a right to be treated at hospitals. So let's let this whole thing unravel and see where it lands. Now, of course, it's pretty facile and glib to say that because you're talking about more people will die. Kids, poor people, elderly people. More people will die than are already, I think, whatever it is, the 45,000 people a year who die now because they don't have access to health insurance. It's ridiculous. But I certainly hope that in the event this mandate is struck down, or in the event that the whole bill is struck down, that the left-leaning establishment in this country and the legal elite wake up. I had countless conversations with these types of people back in the aughts when we were on Air America saying, how do you not see that the institution of the Supreme Court is completely without integrity now? And you're going to hear that interview with Darren Acemoglu. And he talks about... he says that what FDR did in threatening to court pack was absolutely a threat to the inclusive nature of institutions in this country, and I would say to the contrary. By definition, it allowed for labor, children not to be working. It allowed for labor to be working 40-hour work weeks. It allowed for all sorts of consumer and labor protections and protections for the most amount of people, making it far more inclusive. And I think the Supreme Court is going to continue to operate as if there is absolutely the one thing that guided the Supreme Court, supposedly, was this notion that they needed to protect the integrity of the institution so that they could protect the independence of the institution. We need to behave within the parameters of not law, because there is no sort of legal, they don't even have to recuse themselves for the appearance of corruption. Otherwise, Clarence Thomas, who has a vested interest financial interest in many things that come before the court because of who his wife works for. Otherwise, they'd have to recuse themselves. No, the Supreme Court operates within a parameters of norms, of normative values, of norms that, ethics, if you want to call it. And they do this to maintain the integrity of their reputation and the independence of the institution that they supposedly love. I mean, this gets back to conversations we had with Fran Lebowitz in terms of, the sort of the professions. In the past, I've talked about this notion of, the legal profession to be beyond a simple vocation, but a calling. And there needs to be some check on a runaway court. And that is the idea that it's going to lose its independence because the people are responding in a way that could threaten its independence. In other words, the left needs to get far more in touch with the implications of the court system. And it strengthens my conviction that as non-liberal as Obama's picks have been, they still are within the context of non-lunatic. And for at least 4 out of those 5 justices, the ones appointed by Republicans, you can't say that. These people aren't simply to the right ideologically of the judges that picked George Bush. These people are to the right in terms of partisanship, in terms of hackery, than those people who picked George Bush.